Welcome back to Navigate New York. I'm so excited to introduce season 5, and this season is just filled with incredible guests that I'm so grateful that I get to sit down and interview. I'm also so grateful to be sponsored this season by Amvoy Wealth. Amvoy Wealth is a cross-border financial firm who specialise in assisting Irish individuals moving to, living in, or returning from the United States. So Amvoy Wealth are uniquely positioned to help you if you have financial interests in both Ireland and the US. You can find out more at amvoywealth.com. I'll leave their link in the show notes, and I'm so delighted to be partnering with Amvoy Wealth for season 5 of Navigate New York. I'm so excited to be back in studio, back recording Navigate New York, and I cannot wait for you to hear the 10 episodes we have for season 5. Season 5 is officially out in September, but we have some really special news. So because of the Olympics happening right now in Paris, I thought it would be a shame not to release an episode I recently recorded with Irish legend Eamonn Coghlan. Eamonn was in New York just a few weeks ago. He is an ambassador for Goal, the Humanitarian charity, and he was here in New York to launch their Great Ethiopian Run. And I got the chance to sit down with Eamonn and talk about his success as an athlete representing Ireland all across the world. He was in 3 Olympic Games. He's set and smashed world records on the track. He's had some really iconic moments, and we talk about his career, his time in New York. He lived here for 20 years, how the sport of running has changed over the years, and where Irish athletes are at right now, the excitement of the Irish athletes competing in the Olympics in Paris. And I just thought it would be a shame not to get this episode to you while there's Olympic excitement going on. So it was such an honour to speak with Eamonn, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. We'll be back in September with episode 2 through 10. And as always, thank you so much for your support. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Eamonn, thank you so much for being a guest on Navigate New York.
Delighted to be here, Sophie. Absolutely. And delighted to hear how successful you've been.
Oh, stop. Well, listen,
your career out here, yeah.
Thankfully, this podcast is not about me, it's about you. And what an honour it is to have one of Ireland's most respected and beloved athletes here with me in New York. So really appreciate your time. And you're no stranger to New York at all.
No, not at all.
Or the US. Tell us about that.
And cranny around New York City.
Yeah.
I know New York well. I ran the roads.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a good way to navigate New York.
I lived in New York for quite a number of years, and I came out to America when I was only 18 years of age, to Villanova University down in Pennsylvania to pursue my career in athletics. And once I graduated from there, I decided I was going to stay on and, pursue my career as a professional athlete in the United States. And I got to work for Bud Fulcher, and at the same time being a professional runner. And I settled in Rye, New York. 2 of my kids were born up in Rye, New York, up in United Hospital there. And we went back to Ireland quite a few years ago because I wanted them to get to know the family roots.
Yes.
The grannies, the granddads, the aunts, the uncles, and the cousins, and all that kind of stuff.
So the best of both worlds.
I know New York well. New York has been very, very, very good to me all these years. I suppose I made my name as an athlete out of New York because of the successes I had in Madison Square Garden. So I owe New York a lot. A lot.
Oh, well, listen, I think it's so inspiring to hear that you came over here as a young 18-year-old athlete, probably at a time where moving away from Ireland was a lot different than it is now. How was that first sort of few years?
Well said, because I remember I hadn't been outside of Ireland.
Really?
I'm 18 years of age. I just finished my leaving cert. And I didn't even have a scholarship to the States officially in early August of that year, 1971. And it was only 2 weeks later when the phone call came through offering me the scholarship to Villanova. And I got on the plane to Kennedy Airport, and I never forget feeling the heat and the humidity. Yeah. Oh my God. It just blew me away. But it was like going to the moon.
Yeah.
You leave Ireland, you're teary-eyed. Will I ever get home again? Because in those days, not too many people got to go back too often. And when I got over here, I was just completely taken in by what it had to offer. It was very, 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 very tough. But I stayed on all those years, until I moved home to Ireland 20 years later.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's interesting to hear how much of an impact the US had on your professional career. And I feel like we'll jump back and forth between so many things in this episode, but like athletics in Ireland at the minute seems to be having there's like such a crescendo, and the media around it is incredible. And do you think if you hadn't left Ireland at that time, you wouldn't potentially be as successful as you ended up being as an athlete?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I probably would have ended up being an electrician.
Right, yeah.
Working in my father's business.
Yeah.
My brother went into that business and continues to this day to run his own electrical firm. But I would have probably been an electrician. But it was really funny, though, because you get certain breaks in life. And I got a lucky break. And the lucky break I got was 6 months after I left Ireland to go to start college in Villanova. Studying was very, very difficult for me, right? Oh, the academics, I found it very hard. I was injured at the time. I wasn't competing for the team.
Oh.
My girlfriend was in Ireland.
Oh, no.
Eamonn. And I was so homesick. I wanted to go back. So after 6 months, I left in the dark of night, snuck out of Villanova and went home. I went home to compete in the World Junior Cross Country Championships, injured. And I didn't perform well at all. And I announced on my arrival back to Dublin after competing in England that I'm not going back to Villanova.
Right.
So my father was like devastated. He said, Eamonn, listen, we mightn't have much money, but he said, I'll fly you back. Christmas time, I'll fly you back in the summer. Please go back. I said, no. So then Jumbo Elliott, the great coach from Villanova University who made the call, goddamn Irishman, get your ass over here.
Really?
He wanted me to go back. And he never gave anybody a break.
Yeah.
So I said no.
Wow.
And then my coach, from the time I was a child at 11, 12 years of age, who got me into athletics, said, Eamonn, in life, you're going to come many crossroads. He said, if you make the left turn, you stay at home. After a year or two, you're going to be thinking you have a great time, but you know you made a mistake. If you make the right turn, go back to Villanova. He said, it'll be hard for the first 6 months to a year, but just stick with two things, your education and your running, and don't worry about anything else. He said, but you'll know you made the right decision.
Yeah.
And I said, no.
No way.
I'm not going back.
Stubborn.
So then Eamonn, my girlfriend, said, I'm not going to be responsible for you quitting your running and quitting your college in America. I'm not going out with you anymore.
Good woman.
So she sent me back. And now, nearly 48 years on, we're still married.
Wow.
So talk about breaks in life. They saw something, Jumbo Elliott, Jerry Farnan, my father and others who were my soulmates, you know, looked after me from the time I was a kid. They saw something in me that I probably didn't see at the time, but I wouldn't have found out had I stayed at home.
Yeah.
Because when I went to Villanova, I was training with the best athletes in America, if not the world. I was being coached by one of the greatest coaches in the world. I was in an environment that was conducive to positive thinking, winning attitude all the time. And I just kind of took my time when I made that right turn, knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I began to believe, hey, they're just the same as me.
Yeah.
Sure, if I can beat them, I can, you know, be one of the best guys on the team, or I could be one of the best guys in America. And fortunately, that's the way it worked out over the following 4 years, and gave me the stepping stone to a wonderful life and career in athletics and in business.
Amazing, Eamonn. And it's so good to hear you say that, because I think like some of the listeners of the podcast are in Ireland, some are new to New York, and I remember my own first year moving here, and you know, it's scary, and I guess anything that you're trying that's new and out of your comfort zone, you have to be brave, and with that, I think, you know, it's cliched, but the land of opportunity, America has so much to offer, and to hear that, you know, you were so, you know, reluctant to come back, and then look, you know, you make that one step and then it changed your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about it, you know, and I'm still enjoying the life of athletics, from athletics to this very day. You know, even just been here in New York helping out this weekend is because I look upon it as being able to give something back, but also an opportunity where they recognise what I achieved and are only delighted for me to be here to do the work for Goal or Children's Crumlin Hospital or wherever it has been over the years. So that's what I really enjoy in most. So if I hadn't been a successful athlete, I wouldn't be out doing all this stuff. As I said, I'd be an electrician, a live wire.
But it's amazing that you spend and give so much time, you know, to such worthy causes like Crumlin and like Goal. And, you know, we were just chatting there about the Great Ethiopia Run that's coming up, and all of these initiatives that you've really been an ambassador for and a patron to, and it's amazing the community that running has created. I think not obviously you as a professional athlete and the runners that you've met and coaches you've had and places you've been, but even more as a community. thing, I feel like there's been such a buzz for running now, and as we were just chatting to Eamonn Sharkey, people want to get involved with the Goal Ethiopia Great Run in November, not because they're the fastest runner or they're obsessed with running. It's more the community that it creates, and so tell us a little bit maybe about that Ethiopia Run and how Goal have sort of created this occasion.
Well, I've been a patron of Goal since it was founded nearly 47 years ago.
Yeah.
And through John O'Shea, who was a sports journalist for the Irish Press in Dublin. And John was a very aggressive, demanding devil.
Really?
He wouldn't take no for an answer. Yeah. And he'd bully you into 2:00 in the morning. I'd be in San Diego after breaking a world record for the mile, and he'd be ringing me looking for a scoop after the race. John, I'm going to stay. F off, he'd say to you. Oh, good God, I'm interview. But it turned out John was one of the great humanitarians of all time. Yeah. Way ahead of his time. And he set up Goal. And Goal name came from his involvement, I suppose, in sports. You score a goal, you have a goal. And it was to help the third world. And over those past 47 years or so, has grown enormously around the world, and there's thousands of humanitarians out there working in the fields, helping people who are really suffering from war and terror and destruction and hunger and just devastation in their lives. So when Goal was set up, John O'Shea then put together the Goal Mile, which is going on these 40 years now, every Christmas. And it's synonymous with Christmas in Ireland, the Goal Mile. And then you had the Goal 4x1 mile relay in 1985, where we broke the world record. It was myself lead off. I was the only guy who didn't run under 4 minutes that night. You had Marcus O'Sullivan, triple world champion indoors. You had Frank O'Mara, double world indoor champion, and Ray Flynn, the Irish record holder. So John O'Shea and Goal saw an opportunity to make something out of us 4 athletes who were in the top 10 in the world, to put a relay together to break the world record. And we got close to 10,000 people in UCD in Belfield in Dublin for that event. Thus the Goal Mile was held, other relay mile was held, and we broke the world record. And as I said, it still stands to this day. So the whole sporting element back then, you had Johnny McEnroe involved, you had Mats Wilander, the great Swede, involved in it, Matt Doyle, a great Irish tennis player, and a multitude of sports people that John brought on board to help promote what Goal is all about. So coming up now is the Great Ethiopian Run, and it was founded by one of the greatest Ethiopian runners of all time, Haile Gebrselassie, who's known as the Emperor. Multiple Olympic champion, multiple world champion, multiple world record holder. And this event was started about 21 years ago. And Goal here in USA, in New York, decided, well, let's help promote what Goal is all about in New York, and use the medium of the Great Ethiopian Run to capture the imaginations of some of the young, successful businessmen and women in New York or in America who really wants to help society in some way and have a challenge. Now, 10K mightn't sound like a challenge, but at 8,000 feet, it's a big challenge.
Yes.
But to be able to go and experience that challenge and that festive occasion around the Great Ethiopian Run, as well as go out to the fields to see the people that they are trying to help with their humanitarian efforts, makes this event a really special event to attend. And to help raise funds for that cause.
Amazing. It sounds like such an incredible experience, not just the run, but the sort of work that you'll get to be a part of as somebody who's participating or somebody who's helping. And I think it is, I often say, like, when you're living somewhere like New York City or anywhere really, we're so lucky to be born in Ireland and have such strong community and family around us, that you can kind of almost be in a bit of a bubble. And then, things like causes like Goal and Crumlin and Barrettstown, you realise that, when we have the means and the opportunity to give back and to help. And I think it's so inspiring that you're leading that charge and giving people an opportunity, that they can get involved in.
Well, that community spirit is something I experienced enormously throughout the years. Fortunately, I was successful. I was winning. Ireland was going through tough times, both economically and through the Northern Ireland troubles. And there was nothing but devastation in the newspapers and bombs and murders all the time when I was in my prime as an athlete. And yet I avoided speaking about this in public when I'd be interviewed after races. But what happened was, in Madison Square Garden, they would come in their thousands to cheer Coghlan on, whether it be Philadelphia, whether it be San Diego, Los Angeles, Angeles, Edmonton, Toronto, Ottawa,
Yeah.
you name a city, Chicago in the United States where they had indoor track meets. I would go, I would run, but I would win.
Yeah.
But when they came as a community, they came with
Yeah.
the Irish tricolour
Amazing.
flag, screaming. And what I didn't realise at the time was that I was making them feel good by being an Irishman out there kicking butt, winning races.
Unreal.
And I think they're very, very proud, we Irish, of our sports people.
Yes.
Our modern day athletes, which you alluded to earlier, which we'll get back into later on. And they really, just thrive on successful teams.
Yeah.
And I think this is an example where Goal and Barrettstown and Crumlin, when they're seen to be doing work, that is affecting the rest of the world and helping the rest of the world out. The Irish people come out in their troves and they really support causes. And when I think a cause really catches them, they want to help out even more and more and more and more. And I think that's what's happening with Goal in the USA right now, particularly through this Ethiopian run they're coming up with.
Well said. Oh my God, Eamonn. Brilliant. And I also agree so much. There's so many ways as well that Irish people like to support, and whether that be through their time or their volunteering or through donating and sport. You're right, like sport in Ireland. And I sometimes think, is it because I've moved away that you get more patriotic and you get
a little bit.
Yeah, you do, don't you? But also I have to say there's been, like, due to numerous media outlets, but the likes of like hersport.ie and these great media outlets in Ireland that are really, really, athletics in particular, I feel has just really blown up. And it's brilliant when you have Irish athletes becoming celebrities and icons, and I know that's always happened, but it's you can understand. I think we can understand at a time when Ireland was going through so much difficulty, and that you were sort of that shining light for people, and I want to talk again. We've so many things we could talk about, but I can't have you here and not talk about Helsinki and your, legendary. I always remember that on like reeling in the years and stuff like that.
You weren't born.
But it's lived forever. It has lived forever. I think it really showed the psychology and the moment for you of, looking at your Soviet running opponent in the face as you passed him on that final lap. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that moment, when you knew that you were going to pass him out, and did you realize that you were watching him, or what, when
it was my moment of redemption.
Yes.
It was my moment of redemption.
Like Bob Marley.
Some people would criticize you, say the cocky son of a bitch waving at the Russian, arrogant and so forth. But when you finish fourth in the Olympics, right, about 0.3 of a second away from a gold medal, and you don't even get a medal, you get a piece of paper. Not on one occasion, but you finish fourth a second time, a second away from a gold medal, but still only receive a piece of paper. It's a tough blow when you really train all your young life to become an Olympic champion. I didn't want second or third. I wanted to win. However, I didn't win, right? I read the Bible and the Lord said, come forth. So I came forth. Right? I came forth. But the moment that you asked me to reflect on, when I did go by Dmitry Dmitriev in 1983 in the 5,000 meter World Championships, I looked at him in the eye and I clenched my fist and I said, I got it for you guys. The three guys that I alluded to earlier, Jerry Farnan, Jumbo Elliott, and my dad, they had all passed away the previous year. And they believed I could be an Olympic champion, but it wasn't to be. So that moment was a moment of redemption, as I say. And disbelief as well when you're going down the final straight now and you have to blown all these guys away. How come it was so easy? But it was a great occasion in my life, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, it really, really, really was.
We have to celebrate that. Like, I think sometimes as Irish people, we often talk about this in the podcast, that like we can be very, the absolute opposite of arrogant, and it's part of our charm and stuff. But I think America certainly brings out
America loves the arrogance in the Irish, and the Irish hate the arrogance in the Irish, right?
I think there's such a balance to be struck, though. Like, I've realised that I always say this to young Irish graduates who've just moved over here. When somebody asks you what you're doing or what you're good at, you have to have that sort of strong elevator pitch. And the first year I was here, I was kind of blubbering through what I was good at. And after a little while, you realise that, like, you have to be proud and confident. And I think that moment was such an example of being proud and confident. Absolutely, that you're like about to just like And it was disbelief.
Yeah.
I just could watch that on the play. It's absolutely
you have to be able
brilliant.
to differentiate between cockiness and confidence.
And I think it's important not to lose that. But
Yes.
as Irish people, it's in our sort of DNA that we're not...
The Islanders mentality.
Yeah.
The Islanders mentality.
But another thing that I only learned recently was that for a good stretch of your, professional career, it wasn't fully professional because, as you said, you were working for the Irish Tourism Board.
That's right, yeah. On Fifth Avenue, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 495th Avenue, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, right across from St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Lovely.
Yeah, so when I graduated from Villanova in 1976, got married to Eamonn a couple of months later.
She took you back.
She was working for the Bank of Ireland, and I was working for Equity Bank.
Right.
And when it came 2 months later to come back to run on the indoor circuit, they wouldn't give me time off.
Oh,
and I'm like, hold on a second now. I'll make more in one night than I'll make in a month.
Yeah.
Right, from a professional perspective.
Yeah.
So I left the Equity Bank.
Good.
And despite the fact that the headlines in the newspaper that afternoon in the evening press was Bank slams Irish Olympic star. I'll never forget it. I was like, hold on, I didn't mean to me. I just left the job.
Yeah.
Right? But as it turned out, then Eamonn and I moved out to San Diego, and I trained there in the winters, and in the summer I go home to Europe and I'd compete around Europe. So when I came back that summer, Joe Malone, at least Noel Carroll, former Irish great 800-metre champion who also went to Villanova and became the public relations director for Dublin Corporation at the time. He was a high-profile businessman in that area and in athletics. He spoke to Joe Malone, who was the president of, chief executive of Port Fortune Dublin, formerly out of Rye, New York, when he headed up New York. So I met with Joe and he hired me.
Absolutely.
And I went in there as the youth and educational representative. So I learned my skills then through my colleagues to work with all the various tour operators that were bringing students to Ireland to learn English as a foreign language from Italy, from Spain, or whatever it might have been. And I learned the trade of tourism for a number of years. But Joe was the one who said, for indoors, you go back to America.
Yeah.
Whenever you want to. And you just promote Ireland.
Yeah.
And when I'm racing in Europe, you just promote Ireland, but still continue with your work in the field that you're working in. So I then asked him, is it okay if I go to America, to the New York office, instead of working out at the Dublin office? And I stay there all at full time.
Yeah.
Flew straight to New York, moved into Rye, New York.
Love it.
And I continued with the Irish Tours Board for maybe 5 years after that. And then I decided, well, I better be a full-time athlete.
Full-time, yeah.
But when I was competing in Toronto, in Ottawa, in Dallas, they were all sponsored by newspapers.
Yeah.
And part of the deal, because the race directors wanted the chairman of the board at their meets, I had a deal with them to promote Irish tourism and to promote the race at the same time that in the travel section of their Sunday newspapers, there'd be Eamonn Coughlan's Ireland.
Brilliant.
And we get a full page, if not two, in the Sunday columns. And like the Irish Tourist Board couldn't have bought that kind of coverage had they paid for it.
Yeah.
So the relationship and how lucky I was that another man like Joe Malone came into my life and gave me an opportunity to explore America, to work in America, was just fantastic. And then the Americans, because I was a white Irish guy winning races, they for some reason took to me and used to come out in hordes to the various meetings. And it was just a lovely, lovely, lovely time in my life. Yeah, lovely time.
Well, Joe Malone obviously knew what he was doing because it's so genius, like for Eamonn Coughlan's Ireland to be featured in the newspaper that's sponsoring the meet that you're running in. Like Irish tourism probably owes a lot to those, the attention that got. Yeah. And I think the longer I'm here in New York and I suppose worked in fundraising and I guess tourism to an extent as well with Irish organisations that like we are so well got here and like COVID was a real example of how much Ireland's economy depends on US tourism and I think it's due to, I always say this, like I feel like I've had a lot of lucky breaks in New York and it's due to the generations of Irish that have come and the generations of Irish that came before you that kind of built this platform for us. So you had all the American supporters as well.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. And I remember part of my job, I used to go to the colleges around the States and promote Irish tourism and Irish studies. And one of the big things that happened for us was in Stonehill College up in Massachusetts. Father Bartley McFadden, I'd say he's passed away now. He's related to Clannad folk people. So he was the president of Stonehill College, and Joe Malone and he became good friends. But my job then was to go to Stonehill colleges and other colleges around, Oneonta and so forth, Cornell, to promote the Irish Studies program that was formally signed up to between UCD and them. So it meant students from any college in the United States could go do Irish Studies programs in UCD.
Amazing.
But they applied to Stonehill and they got their credits from Stonehill, whereas credits weren't allowed to go directly from Ireland back to the respective universities.
Yes.
And that was the start of that. And Joe Malone saw that as an opportunity to utilise the youth of me and the success that I had on the track. He was a good visionary in that regard. And I knew what he was trying to do, and I just went with it all the way. And I'll never forget the headlines, the big banners they used to put up, posters in the colleges. Eamonn Coghlan knows Ireland. He runs it.
Very good.
It was great, wasn't it?
Brilliant. Yeah,
so they were wonderful, wonderful days.
Yeah,
really wonderful days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so interesting to hear how it all lined up, but that all comes through hard work and being open and you know, taking risks. And I think that's what we'll get from this conversation, certainly what I'm getting. And so I would love to talk now a little bit about, you know, Irish athletics today. And, you know, there's so many exciting young athletes coming through. I'll have to give a shout out to Ciara McGean,
sure do.
County Down woman.
Yeah.
I played camogie against Ciara McGean back at under 16 and minor. In Down, and we used to get the ferry across to Portaferry because my club was South Down, and you would see Ciara McGean and running around Portaferry from the ferry with her dad behind her on a bike, and to think of where she is now. And do you know what you were saying there as well? And I know there's so many incredible athletes that we can talk about, but you know, you had that 4th place. You know, Ciara McGean has had bronze,
fought in the World
silver,
Championships as well,
and her recent goal just felt like that moment for her.
It was her redemption.
Yes, yeah.
No question. I was so delighted for her because from the time I first would have come across Ciara in Belfast in the Odyssey at the National Indoor Championships when she was 14, 15 years of age, and she won the senior title over 1,500 metres. And I could see the heart that she had and the engine and the determination right from the very beginning. So from then on, she went on and finished second in the World Junior Championships and won numerous other events, but she didn't get the World Championships. She didn't get the European Championships, maybe bronze, but she wanted to get her gold and nothing else. And she went through tough times with injuries and sicknesses and so forth. And then last year when she bounced back onto the scene and she won the Diamond League and she broke the Irish record and had a incredible year, just to see her come out this year, coming off that last turn, boxed in, knowing from our training that a gap is going to open up here any second and I'm going to pounce through it. You could see it in front of your eyes if you knew what was going on, and it happened.
Yeah.
And when she went, she was gone. There was no stopping her. Yeah. And I was just so happy for her because now at 32 years of age, I was 30 when I won the World Championships. Yeah. She's 32 years of age. That's her coronation. And irrespective of what happens to her in the Olympic Games, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But she'll be determined to try and get on that podium, which is not going to be easy in Paris, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful win for her. Yeah. And the rest of the Irish guys and gals at the European Championships. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to have grown. What do you put that down to in terms of like the participation? One question I was going to ask you earlier was when you were young, learning or starting to run and do middle distance in Ireland, was that the done thing, or were you encouraged to play like GAA, or how did...
Well, yeah, I played Gaelic football with Good Counsel in Dublin. I played soccer with Rialto. Yeah. Brian Kerr, the former Irish manager, and I were neighbours across from one another from the time we were born. We were the best of kids, friends growing up, and we played soccer together a lot. And then I stopped on the Gaelic and I continued with the soccer, and then I found the athletics at 12 years of age. Yeah. And over the next 2 years I was playing my soccer, but I was winning races. I was playing my soccer and I was winning races. And then the soccer clashed then from Saturdays to Sundays for the under-15s, but running was on a Sunday. So the guy in the soccer club, Ray Alto, said, well, you better make up your mind. Yeah. It's either soccer or it's running. You have to make up your mind. And I said, okay, I'll go run. Yeah. Because I was winning and running and we weren't winning in soccer.
Good enough.
In soccer. And like that's just the way it was for me from that young teenage age to just stick with the running.
Stick with
because
it, yeah.
Running just, it made me feel good about myself. It was good for my self-esteem. I found it difficult as a kid to read and comprehend. And it was only years later I said, I probably had a dyslexia because my son John was diagnosed with dyslexic when he was 9 years of age.
Right.
And we went and had certain things done, classes and programs, and then he went on and he flew through his inter, flew through his leaving. And when he was going through some of those tests, I did a little test and the person said, hey, Eamonn, you've probably got dyslexia since you were a kid too.
Yeah.
So the running was the thing that made me feel good about, whereas when it came to trying to memorize poetry and all that kind of stuff as a child, it was impossible to do so.
Well, it's brilliant to hear that as well, that, not brilliant to hear. I mean, it's important to know that you're, I personally think, and I'm not like, I love to run, I just love to exercise in general, but I think running in particular, as somebody who's, likes to be active, it's the best form of like therapy. I think it's just the way your mind can process things that doing any other exercise, it doesn't feel the same way. And like you might have been feeling that bit of suppressed kind of energy that you couldn't express if you did have that.
Yeah, good way of putting it,
Yeah. So, and it's, I wonder now today what, obviously, because when we think about the 70s and 80s and running wasn't the most popular sport in the world, and now it seems to be, I suppose there's way more exposure, but there's so many more. Do you see a big growth in it, like sort of at grassroots level in Ireland?
No question about it. Kids can't even get into our athletics club because it's full, and the same with most of the athletic clubs in Ireland. There's been a fantastic explosion. But when you go back to Ronnie Delaney's time in the 50s, there were 30, 40, 50,000 going to Lansdowne Road. There were 25,000 going to Santry. When I was competing in the 70s and 80s, you were getting tens of thousands at the goal relay mile and in Santry. And then it died off and died off and died off. And then through Sonia's era, and this is no reflection on Sonia, but the crowds weren't there because there was only Sonia. There weren't others like Frank O'Mara and John Tracy, to name a few of the Irish guys. But since Sonia went off the scene, then it got very, very, very quiet. But this year, you could, for the first time, go anywhere in the street and people are talking about athletics. They're talking about Kieran McGinn. They're talking about Sophie Becker, Charlene Walsey. They're talking about Thomas Barr. They're talking about, what's that girl's name again, Eamonn, you've been talking about for the last 3 years? Oh, Rashida Adeleke. Oh, yeah. Now they know her name. Just Rashida.
Yeah, Rashida.
So, as my old marketing teacher in Villanova University said at a Marketing 101, he came in on his wheelchair, Professor Bubkicks, and he said, principle of marketing is, you put a monkey on television for long enough, you make a monkey famous.
Yeah.
In other words, you get the exposure through the medium of podcasts, through social media, which wasn't around in my day.
Yeah.
And you get performers performing, like winning European gold medals and silver medals, and winning races in the United States, like Rashida is, and like Sarah Lavin is in Europe.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's an interest there, now, and there's an excitement. So the buzz in Irish athletics is definitely greater than it's ever been because of what social media has done and because of the successes of the athletes in recent times. And it's brilliant to see. Like, I'm getting really excited about athletics again. Whereas over the last few years, whatever, you'll watch it. But now it's like anticipation. And that anticipation for our Irish teams in all our sports is wonderful to see. And I've seen the growth of that when in the noughties I was working on the board of the Irish Sports Council, as it was called then. It's now Sport Ireland, and I could see what funding was going into infrastructure, into the structures, and into the corporate governance, and into getting all the various things right. And once those organisations got things right, more money came in, women in sport funding came in.
Massive.
And there was just, so we're getting the rewards from that now by our performances, as I say, across all sports in Ireland today because of the investment that's going in, which is still probably not enough. But we're seeing the fruits of it now.
Amazing. Yeah, it hasn't just happened overnight. It's been long.
It's been long. It's been long.
And I'm sure all the athletes, Irish athletes, love to get yourself and Sonia, and get your your advice, because you've been in these positions and that sort of level of competition is very unique.
Yeah. No, I was coaching some lads up to about 4 or 5 years ago, and the last of them went to college in Villanova University, coincidentally. And my son John, who was a good athlete, he decided he was going to move on into a career and back off. And I said, maybe it's time after 50 odd years that I can go play golf on Saturdays or Sundays or midweek, and I don't have to worry about coaching and so forth. So I stepped back off of the direct hands-on coaching, but I'd be there as a mentor in some capacity. When one of the coaches would call and say, Eamonn, will you speak to such and such a guy? Or you go watch their training, you'd have a quick word in, or they might be short of a few quid and you try and help get sponsorship for them, so forth. So I'd be on the peripheral of it from a mentoring role at this point still.
Nice. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting, the mentality, as we learn more, as someone who wouldn't have grown up around athletics, like the more exposures you say that it's getting, you learn more about the mentality that it must take, to take those losses and then to really get your moment, and hopefully our Irish athletes continue to get them moments in these big stages. But I wanted to ask, in terms of like how the difference between when you were at your prime in races and how so much, and I know of course you had the best of the best around you, but now how all sports have developed and that support, whether it be with physical training or diet or nutrition and sort of psychology. We see teams having backroom staff of 20 people. How do you feel, do you feel that did you ever feel like you hadn't maybe got that support in your career? Or
I would like to have thought that I did get the support in my career, but nothing
compared to now.
Today.
Yes.
So when you think about the support in my career back then, I wasn't getting paid. You couldn't get money in college, so you had a full scholarship for sure, tuition, room and board, and whatever academic assistance you might need. You got your per diem money when you went on the road, to buy your meals or whatever it would be. But there's nothing. There was nothing like there is today. In terms of medical backup, no, you might go to the doctor in the infirmary, but there was no science attached to his looking after you. There was no science to your diet. You learned from the other guys, you eat pasta the night before your race. You don't eat junk food,
Yeah.
And then you're on your way to do a track workout and you're drinking a can of Coke and you're eating a Mars bar, and it's like, hey, you know what? You don't do that nowadays. So modern science, modern technology, the internet, the means of communication, the work that was done on sports psychology, I would have been like not a guinea pig, but when students were studying sports psychology, invariably 2 or 3 times a year, I would get papers sent to me asking me questionnaires to fill out. So we didn't have any sports psychology whatsoever. We had nothing like that. Nowadays, I see athletes training and halfway through an interval session, they might be doing 10 times 1,000 meters or 5 times 1,000 meters with, say, a minute or two rest. And in between that rest period, when they finish their first one, the coach would take a little pinprick of blood out of the finger, put it into the little computer, and instantaneously say, okay, your lactic is up. I want you to take out of this one. So the science and then the heart rate monitors, all the science that's going in is allowing athletes to train the right amount rather than overdoing it. We would have overdone it and got injured. So we didn't have that backup support. When it came to massage therapy, we didn't have that support. You had to go seek your own massage therapist, and you might get it maybe once a week or maybe twice. If you were making any money, you'd go get it twice a week. But there was no backup support whatsoever compared to what there is nowadays. And I wouldn't look back with, I wish it was. No. I had my great time. I'm complaining now. Because I looked 10 years before me or 20 years before me and look at Ronnie Delaney. What did he have? And Ronnie Delaney's probably saying, look what these guys are getting in the 80s and 90s. I'm saying, well, look at what these guys are getting in the 2020s. It's just mind-boggling. And then even in college now, you have the nil. You're familiar with the nil? Okay, so college athletes in all sports are professional. They're no longer amateur NC2A athletes, and the nil is name, image, and likeness. So I'm now allowed to sell my name, my image, and my likeness for multiples of millions, depending on your sport, which allows me to accept money. And then if an athlete in athletics is really good, and they think, well, okay, I'm running really well in such and such a university, but if I transfer to this high pro university, my nil value will go up. So
Right.
their loyalty to their first college has gone out the door, and now they are able to go into another college. So it's unbelievable in that regard. So, and likewise, if an athlete is really good and an Olympic potential medalist, the shoe companies can come in and say, right, I'll give you $1 million and we'll pay for your school, but don't run for your school.
Wow.
That's the way it is nowadays, which is not bad. Because it's given the athlete an opportunity to take advantage of their skill at such a young age.
Absolutely.
And so it's a lot different now. And now you have your agents running after you, and your PR, and you've got your social media director, and you've got everything. And then not only that, if you've got 500,000 followers on your Twitter or your Instagram account, hey, that's value to the shoe company as much as your running is.
Wow.
So it's completely different. And it's brilliant to see.
Yeah, it is.
Brilliant
it
to
is.
see.
But also, it's so funny to think of you as like the rogue runner, like just going for it, and in maybe a simpler time. But like, do you feel like now today? Like how does your body feel? Like how do you feel now? You know, you're in your
I'm
early
70
and you look phenomenal.
Plus VAT.
You look brilliant.
Plus VAT.
And you have so much energy, and you're golfing. And
the
do
energy
you still? How do you feel?
Well, I feel good, but I've got a lot of aches and pains still, more than ever before. I had a new hip job done last year, which was bothering me for 9 years, and I kept saying to the doc, please, no. Another doctor, yes, no. And eventually I got it done, and I'm a new man.
Yeah.
It was just a pain in my groin sitting down.
Yeah.
And if I got up and ran across, the hallway or across the street, you say, there's nothing wrong with you. But as soon as I said, anyway, that's been taken care of.
Yeah.
And since then, the old hamstrings and the knees begin to hurt once in a while. Yeah. But generally speaking, I'm in very good health. Wow. I enjoy my golf. I enjoy my walking, and I enjoy traveling.
Amazing. Well, I mean, the mileage that those legs have done, they deserve to be looked after.
200,000 miles on those legs.
That's unbelievable.
You keep a car going for that length of time.
You need an MOT now.
You do, yeah.
Oh, well, Eamonn, listen, it's just been such a pleasure to have you as a guest on Navigating New York. And
thanks very much,
Yeah, it's I'm so excited to sort of share this episode and to promote what you're doing with Goal and the great team and here in New York, and hopefully we'll get you back again the next time you're over.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it, Sophie, and congratulations to you in all you've achieved so far, and there's a lot more crossroads to come to in your life yet.
Thanks, Eamonn. Thank you so much.